All right. I guess we're live here. Yeah, you are live. It says it right at the top.
We just got our clothes changed, so wardrobe change is over, except Dave kept the same T-shirt on.
Same T-shirt.
All right. Well, listen, excited that you're joining us. Dave and I are here for the next, is it 45 minutes? 30 minutes.
We got 45 minutes.
30 or
45.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, still
45 minutes.
7 Eastern, 6 Central.
So here's just three things to kind of set the table for the next 44 minutes together. Firstly, there are no silly questions, right? So I want everyone to feel really comfortable. I remember when I started learning about finance, I found it really intimidating, and I didn't do well in school, so I didn't feel very comfortable to put my hand up. I really want to encourage all of you to know that there just aren't any silly questions. If you don't know the answer, I promise you someone else listening doesn't know the answer, and I encourage you to have the courage to ask. It'd mean a lot to me, and it'd make this a lot more fun than just Dave and I talking to each other. Secondly, this is a Q&A session, but also feel free to build. If you've got experience in one of these areas or a great success story, drop it in the box and we'll read it out. I really believe that we are smarter than me. So the more people we have contributing and talking and sharing, the better off we are. And then finally, the format, Dave is a much better reader than I am. So he's going to read the questions, and then he's going to go first and I'm going to go second. You'll find that Dave and I, although we've worked together for well over a decade, we share very similar values, but we have different opinions and different experiences. So hopefully that's going to be valuable to you, that you're going to hear kind of two perspectives. And Dave's an incredible technician and a guy who's been consulting for a long time. And I've got the operational experience and probably made all of the mistakes. So I can come in from that perspective as well. So with that, why don't you get us kicked off, Dave? And while he's going there, guys, please drop your questions in the chat.
Yep. Thank you. We have two of these to start. Thank you, Shawn, for the intro there. Appreciate it. We have two questions to start. We're going to jump off with. The first one is one that I only have a tiny bit on, but I'm going to do my best. And that's, what are some more resources, i.e. podcasts, books, etc., you recommend to learn more about this? And not just to self-promote, it actually is in here. The book, The Bar Shift, that we mentioned earlier, there is a section in here that I wrote with Dave Nitzel. There's a section in here, 6 chapters just on financials alone. So that's we really knocked out the cost of goods stuff. We go into a pretty amount of detail on the wasted side of things. There's actually other chapters around that get more specific into glassware and draft beer. So those cover some more of the other hidden costs of things on that. That is available on Amazon for $18.95. I frankly think it's an amazing resource. Buy it, and if you hate it, I'll come out and buy you a beer wherever you're at. The other two, one is, frankly, every single restaurant association website I've looked through has great information. I randomly ran into the New Mexico one this afternoon. That was good. The National Restaurant Association tends to have some great financial advice, so those are always a great place. Blog.cambro, CAMBRO.com has some decent resources as well. And finally, if you want to go, I know you said to learn more. I don't know how far you want to go, but there's a really cool site called Towards Data Science. Towards, TOWARDS, datascience.com, that actually gets into some coding kind of stuff you can do. It gives you set up on how this works. And if you really want to get heavily into the data and the technology on how to dig into this type of information, that goes really deep into it. I'm going to turn that over to Shawn, because that's what I got. I usually do my research and then forget where I've gone.
Yeah. So it's a great question. And I think I'd encourage anyone watching, anyone who's in leadership especially, to not only learn, but to teach. And there's something really cool about putting together shorter than 10-minute lessons on something as weighty as financial literacy. A 6-minute lesson, an 8-minute lesson. So two of the biggest resources that I use on a monthly basis when I'm trying to understand something like more complex financial issues. YouTube, anything you want to find, there's lessons on there. It's amazing. You can kind of drill in and you can find a 5 or 10-minute lesson. Khan Academy is really good as well. So all the university level on any of these concepts, and he's an amazing teacher. So those are two free resources. 3 books that come to mind. One book that I can say changed my thinking altogether is, especially as a father, The Millionaire Next Door. It talks about, the difference between people that have a rich mindset or someone who's going to build wealth and someone who's just going to build debt. And they're polar opposites, right? And they look very similar. So that's a great book. I read a book called, instead of Get a Life, it was Get a Financial Life. And it's just like a whole bunch of things that are really applicable to running bars. And then Robert Kiyosaki, who in the fame of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read his whole series years ago. And recently I picked up, reread his book on financial IQ. And it's a really good, really easy book to absorb. So there's a few books and a couple of websites that give you an awful lot to get going.
Excellent. Thank you. So the second question we have from Seth Blumenthal, and this is one of my, honestly, this is a phenomenal concept and topic for me. I get really into this. I just told Shawn before we jumped on here, we got to be careful. We could go down the rabbit hole on this, but sometimes a freer culture of staff doing shots, generous shift drink culture contributes to camaraderie, but increases cost of goods. Any advice on tightening this up without killing the camaraderie vibe, which can help cultivate regulars and increase sales overall? So I'll start on this with first as a statement that there is no 100% right answer here, right? You've got a culture in your business that you've built and you've got to maintain, and you've got to then, as you're working with your business and you've created this, okay, we're going to give away drinks and so on, you have to analyze that data and decide, does this work for me to make profit? Is the way that this program's working, does this allow me to have the business that I intended to have? So that's my sort of umbrella on this, but I do have much stronger opinions. My first one I'm going to say is this. I personally have never chosen a bar where I will go back all the time and it becomes my bar, and the majority of my friends I talk to the same way. I never made that decision based on the free stuff I'm getting. I just don't. The bar I worked at in Baltimore, I mentioned Patrick Russell. We had a very, very tight comp policy. I think I mentioned in that video, and it worked well. We had an amazing culture. They still do to this day. They pack it in. Shawn's got 2 amazing examples. I'll let him go with. So from my end, giving away drinks in America is a big part of the culture. It really is. But for me, customer service, creating a culture of inclusiveness, of bringing your staff together with the customers, bringing the customers on the other side of the bar together, getting them to talk about whatever, making them feel like this is their home away from home. That to me is way more important than giving away drinks. That said, again, all my clients do it, and it really comes down to measuring that and then looking at that measurement and putting it against your original business plan and make sure it's still working. Shift drinks, we had a no shift drink policy where I worked, and it was fine. And we all paid for our drinks. We made plenty of money on shift, more than when I became a manager. I made less money, so I was like, look, I'm okay with this. And then drinking during the shift, I've never seen. I'll actually go to the other side on this. You're running a retail business, and it's already chaotic as hell, and it's a difficult thing to do. And at the end of the night, you got to count all your cash. And crazy scientific study came out. I think it was in 2018 that after 2 drinks, your judgment drops. Shocker. So your ability to say no to a 3rd drink drops as well, but your ability to reason and judge things properly goes away. So in terms of, and this is sort of I don't know if you meant this in your question, but I'm just going to put this out there. I strongly believe in no drinking during shifts, and any bar I've ever run, that's my opinion. That's what we've done. Any owners ever asked me, that's what you don't need to be drunk behind or drinking behind the bar, taking shots to create a great vibe with the people on the other side. to that, I'm gonna turn it over to Shawn because I know he's got a lot to say on this one too.
Well, let me first say that everything that was before COVID is before, right? So if anyone does want to make a change to how you go about business and live your life, like now's the time, right? You don't need an excuse. You can just say, hey, you know what? We're in a different economy now, and we need to show up differently, and these are the new rules, and that's up to you to decide. So, you know, I remember I was only 27 years old when I opened my first bar, right? And at 27, if you're like me, you knew everything. And I remember getting ready to go and asking someone who had some experience, and I kind of showed them my plan, and you know, we had X amount of people per shift and 2 shift drinks or whatever we were going to do, and then talked about our budget for customers and what we were giving away. And this guy owned 50 different businesses, which still boggles my mind. We took 2 weeks off a year and spent 1 week in each of his businesses. That'd be the whole year. And he asked me, he said, have you ever been to a hardware store or grocery store? And the owner's like, nah, I got this. Like, I got your groceries. Like, that's what you do for a living, right? Like, why shouldn't you get paid for it? And it always stuck with me. And you know, our policy was this. We tried not to give things away that people would buy, right? But we would sometimes give things away that they might not otherwise buy. So if they were a good bar customer, we try to cross-sell them in the restaurant with an appetizer, right? But they were going to buy the beer anyways. So why not take that money and run your business and take care of your staff and, you know, and your business? You know, when it comes to staff drinks, I tell you, like, I feel differently about it every few years. Maybe that's me getting older, but even back then, yeah, we'd allow 2 staff drinks per, and as Dave said, 2 often leads to 4, and then the next venue on. I don't know about you, but I don't need any drinks at 3 o'clock in the morning when people are finishing work. Like, my body isn't begging for a couple of shots, or, you know, I want a cold glass of water and a place to wind down. But I think right now a lot of operators are deciding, like, who are we going to be post-COVID, right? Like, what message are we putting out there for our team? And yeah, there are staff that will only work at a place that allows you to drink behind the bar. And if that's you and you can make that work, okay. For the rest, you know, I think there's something in putting money into subsidizing gym memberships and volleyball tournaments and learning events. I know, you know, for me, I did a lot of that, and I'm more proud of that than anything that I did in contributing to the people that work for me. And am I proud that we had one guy who got in a bicycle accident on the way home from work. Am I proud that I had something to do with that by providing some of those drinks? Not at all. I'm glad he didn't get killed. Not proud of it. It's, as I say, it might not be the sort of thing liability-wise that I'd ever do at 3 o'clock in the morning on getting you started and lighting that torch at that time of night.
Yeah. You actually you just popped something into my head. I think is really brilliant there, Shawn. If you are, you know, you consider doing something like what Shawn's saying here, doing volleyball tournaments, doing educationals and stuff, and you invite your guests to that type of event rather than focusing on giving stuff away across the bar. You know, bars and restaurants, it's about community. And, you know, and we always say our bar community. Well, the community also includes our guests. So if you extend that community past the time they're in the business, and you know you're working with your staff outside, we used to actually have an annual football game for Cooper's Tavern up in Baltimore, and shit, I mean it would honestly be half staff and half guests who just really enjoyed spending time with us and just build an even stronger community. So in terms of the camaraderie vibe, I think there's a lot of ways to tackle that question that don't involve giving away free shots. So, all right, we got another one. I love it. Thank you, everybody, for asking questions. Oh, my God, we got a lot coming in. We're going to have to get tighter, Shawn. Can you talk more about your recommendations for accurately stocking, especially given the current climate? I would love to talk more about that.
Keep it short, Dave.
Favorite topic of mine. So one thing I did for my clients before we shut down was I created a cash flow extension plan. We looked at all their product and said, what can we put in the well? You know, in the well at the well price, so that you can keep more cash in the bank in order to extend your cash flow, right? So we don't have to spend that money too quickly. And of course, that was a fascinating conversation with these people as they had to decide, how much am I willing to take a hit on my cost? How much that product still that's been sitting there for 3 months since or 6 months since, we shut down, whatever. But even 6 months before that, that devalues product. The longer it sits there, the less value it has. So that was one side of it. In terms of stocking, and I want to make sure I answer this correctly. There's a lot of stuff coming through. So in terms of stocking, I've always recommended 1 week of stock on hand, and that's how I was taught originally. If any client's pushing on, I'll say, look, you can extend this as at most, I'd say 2 weeks. If you get caught with your pants down again, we know what that looks like now. If you get caught with your pants down, 1 to 2 weeks isn't going to kill you. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'm a huge fan, by the way, of just-in-time inventory, right? So as the week's ending, you're running out of everything. That's a hard thing for a lot of people to accept. So my answer, in short, keep it tight. Keep adjusting your pars. Don't take case deals if they don't work for you. If that's part of that question, it usually is. Case deals have to work for you. If it's going to sit for a month, right now especially, that's bad for you. The drop in price has to make sense. And I have a case deal calculator that I worked up that I can send anybody who wants to take a look at that side of things as well. Over to you, Shawn, before I ramble.
Yeah. We'll keep it tight because I've got a bunch of questions coming in here. So three quick tips on this. Number one, always keep front of mind the 80-20 principle. 80% of your sales pre-COVID came from 20% of your items. You better know what those items are. Make sure they're priced properly and positioned properly. Number two, this is a time to strip back, right? Like we've all got tons of shit we don't need, and you got to pare it back and tighten it up. No one's got the cash right now to have an extra $500 or $5,000 laying around in product that you're never going to sell. Thirdly, is I always believed as an operator, like taking care of the people that take care of me. So I worked with certain distribution partners, and they were good to me, helped me with my education program and all that sort of thing. And the prices were right, and I kind of doubled down with those folks. I said 3, but there's 4. 4 is we had what we called a lockout list. So I had X amount of gins, X amount of whiskey, X amount of this. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about the newest product or a better product. But you had to explain to me a few things. Number one, what product was going to replace. You had to tell me the product you wanted taken off my shelf to put yours on. Number two, how it would price in comparison. Number three, how you're promoting it, right? I'm a tiny business. You better be out in front of this thing, making people crazy about it. And then finally, how we use it in at least 5 different ways, right? I don't want a single product that's just poured out unless it's a wine, right? I want a product that's versatile and we can use in a lot of different ways so that we can look to optimize that and get a bunch of sales out of it. So it's time now to be really smart retailers and at least till we weather the storm for the next 12 months or so.
I'll add one more to that list, Shawn, that I actually talked to a client about recently. The last question is, if this doesn't sell and we do everything right here, how are you going to take care of that? I can't have this sitting in my business. What are we going to do to move it through the business?
Yeah.
All right, so next we have Luke Woodnut. This is a quick one, actually, I think. So how do you cost cocktails given all the variables? You're going to give us your email address, Luke, and we're going to send you the costing calculator. It's got a video that goes along with it. If you need assistance, I'm available. Shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk to anybody. It's got everything from labor to purees to cleanup and all that stuff built in that you can fill out.
Let me just say on that, often the most expensive component of a cocktail is not costed, right? It just goes left unaddressed, and that's the opportunity cost, right? Like when you only get about 12 or 14 hours a week and less now with COVID of prime time peak hours. And I tell you what, you cannot afford to have drinks on your list that take 2, 3, 4 minutes. And you can't just calculate how long it takes to actually produce it. You got to clean up after it and get set up before it. So we'll help you understand all that. Put in your email address and we'll get you a video and some spreadsheet.
Next one from Anonymous. How do you price expensive liquor items? Still 20% cost? What is fair price? I go the opposite way on this. You build your business plan out. Shawn mentioned a lockout list before. I love that idea. You build your list out. You build your business plan out. You make sure you understand what you need to make in order for that business to be successful, and you buy products that you can price in such a way that A, you can achieve the profits you need, and B, your clientele is going to accept that pricing, right? So there's a push-pull between how much can I charge versus how much are people going to pay. I don't believe in buying something for the sake of having something cool and dropping the price on it. If you need an overall 20% and you decided that the worst cost you can have in your business is 20%, because you're going to have happy hour contributing to driving that up, and you're going to have specials and all this, then yeah, 20% is your number. But that's a very much more complicated question that gets into business planning, P&L, and then digging into your product mix and how products are being sold and how everything's working together and how much that you're selling.
So before I answer an anonymous, Hollis, can you blur my face and do that voice thing for me? That I
can do auto-tune?
I want to have like an anonymous response. I'm just teasing. You guys can ask questions any way you want. So without getting too geeky, I want you guys to Google when you're done here, GM ROI. And it's important to understand, you can't have a straight markup on something that you have to house and you have to pay for the cost. If you buy a $500 bottle of scotch and you're selling, 3 ounces a year, you're holding that cash. So you have to, look at amortizing that loss and building that into your cost structure, right? But you gotta know what business you're in, right? You shouldn't be a local pub and have a $500 bottle, but understanding that your gross margin return on investment is really important if you are going to carry more expensive products. And, for me, I sold a lot of rail, a lot of mid-tier. I kind of blended those in, right? I wasn't looking to make a big markup on that. But if you are looking to hold thousands of dollars worth of expensive stock, then you've got to price it accordingly.
Yep.
Next question. What do we got?
Yep. Next question. I think we have one more right now.
All right.
How frequently do you recommend costing out your menu? So I look at costing of menus with my clients at least once a quarter, and whether or not it turns into a conversation with them or I'm just checking it to make sure things are still in line. However, I think a deeper dive into that question is this. Looking at the target costing of a menu is the very, very beginning of a conversation. So when we're talking about costing out a menu, we're talking about a purely theoretical number. And that number, as I mentioned in the presentation, that number changes literally the first second you open that door and people start buying stuff. Especially if you open later in the day into a happy hour, it totally just knocks it out of the water. So, when you're costing out a menu, I think it's a critical exercise, right? You've got to do it. So much we believe it's so much so that, like I said, we've developed and then redeveloped it. I think 3 times. Shawn and I, with other people too, Angus Winchester and a few others, have re-engineered that menu calculation spreadsheet to sort of bring in new ideas and make it work better for people. So we obviously think that's a very important part of the process. However, I think more importantly in this is at least once a month. I'm doing it with my clients every single week or every other week, depending on how often I'm in the business with them, looking at how that all works in the product mix side of things. So not even talking about loss and variance, you need to get into, first off, you need to understand your top 10 movers in your business. If you don't have a grasp on that, that's the first thing I would recommend doing, finding out what's really moving, and then looking at how much money you're generating for that. Most POS systems will allow you. Sometimes it's a bit tricky if it's like you're well, let's say, and you've got, well shot, this cocktail, that cocktail. You have to add up all the dollar values and all the volumes. But it's a worthwhile exercise to really understand the potential cost of goods you're really hitting on that product. Because if you're costing it out, let's say at 20%, and happy hours and specials and this, that, and the other are driving it up to 28%, your costing of the menu means nothing anymore. It's an important starting point, but at this point, it's only half the conversation. Now you need to dig into Is our happy hour too long now? Are we selling too much stuff at happy hour? Is the pricing, does that need to be adjusted? Whatever that looks like. So I think, I know that's a lot more than what you're asking here, but we have another 20 minutes. So, but that's what I would do with that question. Yeah, cost it out at least once a quarter. Whenever you have a new menu, make sure that the costs haven't changed too much, at least once a quarter. But really, I would advise you to dig into the P&L and the cost of goods side of things.
Yeah, well, I think that, costing anything and everything in your business is part of the daily calculation, right? Like financial literacy is an everyday thing. And when you cost anything, you're costing, as I said earlier, one of the most expensive and sometimes the most expensive component is labor, and labor continues to change, right? I hope it does. I hope you get better over time, and I hope those things come in line. But what I can tell you is the initial costing estimate, I'm pretty good at it, and I'm always wrong, right? It's hard to be right because you're making estimates on what a bunch of folks that work in that business are going to do on a daily basis. So, there's costing a menu, and then there's recosting it, right? There's recasting it to say, hey, have we got this right? And if we've got it wrong, how do we change it? How do we adjust it? You'll see great bars and restaurants around the world like put something on and take something off because, when you hit that bottleneck at 9 o'clock on a Friday night, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work the way it needs to in order to allow everything else to breathe. And, again, the opportunity cost of making something, a great bartender or a great chef will always get through it. But it doesn't mean that the customer's going to be happy. Just spreading that weight across the table and across every person at the bar. So getting your costing right and constantly looking at it and fine tuning it, I think is paramount, especially now more than ever.
100% agree. And we got Luke Woodnut would like us to send that to him. So I'm going to get his email address here.
He's from Canada. Oh, it's just we like Canadians.
Luke, you got a fellow Canadian on here, Shawn, for you. And Richie's Cruz, by the way, said, yes, time is often unaccounted for. I love this topic. Hello from the Philippines. Tiffany Souls, thank you so much. Shawn and Dave, Seth, great thoughts and advice. Thank you. Thank you all for putting that out there. Do you have any other thoughts on the time conversation, Shawn, or do you want to go a little deeper on that? Because since we were cutting that shorter earlier.
What on which time?
On the conversation of time and incorporating time into the cocktail creation process, both for time at the bar. Go ahead.
Here's the best advice I can give on that. You think about people that create cocktail lists or that create menus for restaurants, right? These aren't your slackers and your C players, right? These are the best in your business. Creative people that hustle. And so all of their thinking and the numbers that they use are based on their reference, on their performance. Now, when I work with a business, I look at the bottom 20%. And that doesn't mean that people are weak and slow. It just means they could be new and they're not used to your process and the work environment. But if you have 10 people in the kitchen, I'm going to look at the bottom 2 and see how they perform inside that matrix, right? And those are the numbers that I want to use. And anything above that's a bonus. But you've got to cost things according to, at very least, what your average performer's doing. And there's a risk in doing that too, because you don't know who's going to be scheduled. So you really want to take care of your numbers and take care of your business, and then look to outperform what you put in front of you. Almost always, bars and restaurants do the opposite. They benchmark everything against their best players and say, right, well, this drink, Sarah can make in 90 seconds from start to finish. Well, when you look at it in practice, 2 things. One, when you watch Sarah make that in practice during prime time, it almost always takes longer than 90 minutes. Why? It's dark, it's loud, people are grappling for her attention. She's got this happening, that happening. Things aren't set up perfectly as they were in the test kitchen, right? So all that's happening. And then secondly, it's real time. And at a bar and restaurant, you get between 12 and 16 hours a week typically to make your money, right? Everything else is just you being open. Prime time only lasts this long, so you got to make sure that your menu is set for prime time. And I tell you, as a former restaurateur and bar owner, I was not, what's this crazy place up here? Spaghetti Fad that has a menu the size of the Bible up the road here. Cheesecake. Yes. I was not cheesecake, right? I'm not out to impress people with 8,000 items. I don't give a shit. I want great food for my target audience. And I tell you, they're not worried if I don't have the other 85 styles of cheese fries or whatever the hell people are eating. Like, you got to make delicious food for your target audience, and that's it. And incredible drinks, and have people that can stand in front of the products behind you. Like, I didn't want to have 65 gins because I couldn't remember them all. I wanted my people to be great ambassadors for the products that were behind them and be really proud of our food. And you know, we want it to be tight and to be right, and that's it. Everything else is just your ego getting in the way, or listen to some Muppet who comes in once in a while and says you don't have enough curly fries or whatever the hell he wants.
Love Muppets. Hey, Shawn, we got two more great questions coming in here. And before I address those, Amy Yaki, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. You said, I would also love your costing info. I'll just need your email address, and I can send that to you, Amy. All right. So we have one from Anonymous again. Anonymous has got a lot of questions here. What financial advice do you have for your clients specifically for this year? So it is both different and the same as advice I've always given. I'm just a little more aggressive about it, and people are listening a lot more. I've always believed that if you're gonna run a business, you run it like a business. And I'm not the artsy guy. I'm the data information guy. So if I ever opened a bar, I'd have an artsy friend to do it. I'm great with the operation stuff and the data. So I have a very strong focus on making sure that everything's being run correctly, that the profit's hitting the bank properly, that people are doing things the correct way. So, because of course this is correct being, we've created a plan and we execute that plan, and we see the impact on the numbers, on the guest experience, people coming back and spending money. So that's sort of my direction on this. If you haven't been tracking, if you haven't been looking into your potential and actual cost of goods before, you got to start. You can't afford to not anymore. If you don't have the ability to produce a variance, if you don't know how many bottles of beer went missing in your bar last week, this isn't the climate you can exist doing that anymore. The pennies have become vital to the business. Before, they were really good because they could take you from doing okay to doing really freaking well. But now it's a matter of survival if you don't have all those pennies hitting the bank. On an odd, to me, this might seem like an odd side piece. Organization of the business will directly impact the financial success of it. And I've been pushing really hard on the clients I'm working with right now that you've got to make sure things, like literally the way your bottles are organized in the liquor room, so that when you are 3 deep, those of us who are lucky to have a ton of customers coming in at some point in time, you can be operationally efficient as well. So you can make the money you need to make when you're running at efficiency. Shawn calls this peak operation, which I think is a great way to explain it. You can't get any more people in the bar, so the only more money you can make is if you're running efficiently. So really making sure you're organized there, and then get technology. Don't just shoot out if this is something I'm digging into a lot right now. Get technology incorporated into your business. There's a lot of great solutions out there that are inexpensive that can hit these numbers, that can help you identify these numbers and dig into them and get your costs as low as possible. And they generally have an ROI above what they cost. So if that's not something that you're comfortable with, again, more than happy to help people out with that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that, Shawn? And we do have one more after this.
Yeah. So a few things. Firstly, Wednesday, and you have to look on the tail site, I'm going to give you guys the 9 things in detail that you need to do in this area here, right? We're running a whole hour on it or whatever it is. So I guess it's an hour.
You and Bob, right?
Yep, Bob and I. So a few things. Number one, I really believe I talk to bar and restaurant operators every day, and clients all around the world, all around the country. And I believe with all my heart that it's really now about your attitude, right? The hand we've been given sucks. And I don't mean just COVID. I mean the shit that's being pushed on us as an industry and being locked out when other people are getting open up. So it's now about our attitude. How are we going to respond, and how are we going to lead our teams forward. Brian Tracy, a guy that I studied with for years, used to say it's your attitude, not your aptitude, that'll define your altitude. Right? How high you go now depends on you coming into work every day and going, we're going to make it. And I'm telling you, like, we're working with clients that are having their best year ever, having a better year this year than last year. Right? They've got budgets, they've got targets, they have a plan, they know what they have to do. And that's where you have to be. You have to be aware. Secondly, if you're not an open books company, I suggest you go to open books. No more secrets. Just tell your staff, hey, this is what I get paid. This is what rent costs, this is what electricity costs, this is what our food costs are. This is who's responsible for every line item in the business. Right? You want to survive? You got to open a kimono and just show people and say, hey, this is it. Because I don't want to die fat and wrapped in my kimono. Like, give me a chance and let's do this together. Thirdly, every person's got to have KPIs. GM, dishwasher, everyone in between. What are the KPIs of your dishwasher? What does she or he need to do each and every shift in order to be successful and contribute to the greater good of the company? Fourthly, I used to say A, B, and C players, like, get rid of your C's. Your B's, make sure they're becoming A's. You can only afford A's and A pluses now. And the strongest determining factor in an A or A pluses play or personality is their alignment with your values and your mission, right? Who are they, and do they believe what you believe to move forward? They're coming in contact with hundreds of your guests every day. You can't afford to have C players and B players anymore. It's just a new world. And finally, on this subject of financial literacy and really understanding the 1 cent and 5 cent pieces of your business, do the work. Don't be lazy. If it overwhelms you, put half an hour in every day. If you can stand it, do a couple of hours and figure a piece out and move it forward. But you got to do the work here. We were allowed for about 8 or 9 years to get fat in the old economy, right? Fat and lazy. And we still made a bit of money. No longer. You got to do the work and be sharp and fight every day for your business. And if you do all that, I think you're going to be really successful.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. By the way, everybody, Shawn didn't self-promote enough there, so I'm going to do it for him. You've got to see Shawn and Bob. I've seen these guys speak a couple times together. The content's amazing. Bob knows more about finances in restaurants than I could even hope to imagine. The guy is a damn near genius, if not a genius, on all this stuff. So and entertaining as well. So you got to go to that one on Wednesday.
Sure. As an idiot savant, I don't know if that's unflattering or.
That's the way to put it. Yeah. So the last question here, Morgan Kirshner. I love this. It's similar to the last one, but it does have a very specific sidetrack here. We've discussed a lot about pre-existing businesses, which have been incredibly informative. Thank you. But do you have any tips or recommendations for those of us who are attempting to launch a new business in our new economic climate? Do you think there are specific components to costing that have shifted in this new climate? Yes and no. So I'm actually launching a new business with my wife. There is a gentleman whose name I'm blanking on. It stated something. He started something called Green Wallet back in 2008, and he launched it during the the Great Recession. And he sent out a blog recently that basically it said there is no better time to start a business than when the economy is down. Now, that's, of course, if you have the cash, if you're cashed up and you have the wherewithal to do it. In that sense, I think that, you have the ability to take advantage of certain things that other people don't. Marketing isn't all-time cheap, which I've learned firsthand. I've never had easier access to marketing, so getting the word out is a lot easier and cheaper than it used to be. Secondly, be very, I would say, and this doesn't go quite the financial side, but I think it's a really important one. You've never been able to be more picky with the people you bring into your business than you do now. It's not the time to give your buddy who, is having a hard time a job because they can make it. It's the time to snatch up the talent that's on the market right now. There's never been more amazing managers, amazing bartenders out there just going, I want to get back to it. The third is and this one's directly related. you've never been able to, Sean was still over there. You've never been able to you'll be able to negotiate leases that people won't have access to after this is over for decades. So be really aggressive with that kind of stuff. Same thing with your suppliers. Make sure they're working for you, and make sure they're working for you. I don't want to go too deep on that, step on toes, but get the deals you need to get. And the final piece, stick to your fundamentals. That's my last thing I'll say on this. Again, it's never been more important. Make sure that you have. When I launched my business in Miami, I had 3 different running P&Ls, theoretical P&Ls, to see what would happen to my business if this. Whatever your method is, really dig into the planning process. Make sure you've examined as many variables as you can. And again, if you have further questions, my email address it was on the presentation. I'll pop it in here with Shawn's as well. But with that, the last 4 minutes, Shawn, I'm turning it to you.
All right. Can you hear me? We had a bit of an accident here.
You're good. Can you hear me?
All right. So a few things. First, kudos for opening a venue right now. I would, right? No better time than there's a lot of deals out there. So that's great. And I think you start with a clean slate. I think in opening a venue, and I know we're talking about the financial aspect to it, but never get away into why anyone is going to give you their time or money, right? It's all about hospitality. And to me, hospitality speaks to how somebody feels about themselves while they're in your company, right? And that's, I think, one of the toughest things to do in business, to take a 22-year-old and teach them your brand of hospitality and affect the way that a 45-year-old feels when there's 300 people in the room, right? It's tough to do. But when it's done right, it's a really beautiful thing. A friend of mine, and he's a great speaker and author, John DeJulius out of Cleveland. He wrote a couple of books that I love, Secret Service and Relationship Economy. But he says that, do what you do so well that price becomes irrelevant. And of course, there's a cutoff point of that, right? You can't charge anything you want, but, as a customer, I'm not in a place wondering whether you charge $6 or $8 or $7 for something, right? You can get away with a bit more or charge a little bit more if you're offering an incredible experience, and you want to be able to do that. If you're getting started right now, the way I started at 27, I joked that I knew everything, but I knew I didn't know a lot of things. So like running the back end of my business, I hired people to help me do that so that I could focus on doing my art. And my plan always was, once I got, my stuff up and running, that I'd come back over and take over these other areas of the business. Let me tell you, I never did, because I focus on optimizing the front end and then expanding. And why do I want to spend my time doing the books or chasing this around or doing that? Like, whatever it is that you can outsource that isn't your core business, I highly recommend that you do. And finally, when you're looking to get started, again, you're probably a bit of an artist if you're opening a bar or restaurant and you want to do a lot of things. Try to rein that in, right? Just remember those 2 words, like right and tight. And you can always add things, right? You can always put a few more things on the menu. But let me tell you, guests don't walk out of bars because they didn't have gin X behind the bar, right? They just try something else. And if you have staff, they're just moving people towards some other great choice that you have. So keep everything really tight and make sure it's right every single time. If you can't do it perfectly with a smile on your face and make someone feel good about themselves during peak hours, then take it off the list, right? Price things accordingly and just get your reps up. You can always build things. You can always put your prices up, but don't start too low and just really go for it.
Nice. And thank you all for the wonderful comments. We also wish we could have 10 more hours to do this. Shawn and I love just talking about this stuff, Nothing better. All right. I got any email address that I saw through here. You've got my email address. If you miss it here, send me an email. I'll send you any of the stuff we've talked about today. And if you need more help, if you want to chat, I love talking, obviously. So reach out to Shawn or myself. Both of our email addresses are in the discussion there in the chat.
My email or Hollis's? I couldn't keep up.
Your email and your home phone number, Shawn.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I don't have one.
You want me to do that, right? You said, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Not this time. Not again.
All right. Well, listen, guys, thanks for being with us. And I'm back on tomorrow. afternoon, another webinar, and then another one on Wednesday. So please join us.
Bob.
Bob.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shawn.
All right,
Bye.
thanks, guys.